is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
I am your father.
You like Huey Lewis on the news?
Yes. And you're not sure about this, are you?
You're gonna die, clown!
What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss? Sir? The most you ever lost on a coin toss. Call it.
Whose motorcycle is this?
It's a chopper, baby.
Whose chopper is this?
Zed's.
Who's Zed?
Zed's dead, baby.
Bring out today!
This is a tasty burger.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Welcome to the fucking show.
Hello, welcome back to See What Sticks, a podcast about everything and nothing. I'm Russell.
And I am Ben.
And we're back. Ben, how's school? You're back in school.
Yes, just started this past week. It's going well so far. It's 4 classes, and 2 of them are like major lecture halls, so basically it's just kind of like show up and pay attention. It's low energy, don't really have to do much except take some notes, so I'm all about that.
Yeah, that's really nice, especially because maybe it was true for me. I don't know if you'll find the same thing, but spring semester is always more difficult than the fall semester. Maybe it was just my classes or whatever, but I don't know.
Well, I've only been in for a few days so far of this semester, so I can't really make that judgment yet as far as spring semester, but I guess my last spring semester wasn't terribly difficult. I guess it's really all dependent on what classes you take.
I think so, yeah. I remember my last spring semester in school was like my final semester, so I was just so stressed the entire time.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure coupled with just you wanting to just be done and get it over with, that probably adds another level of or like a deceiving level of difficulty to it.
Yeah, it really does. It's like, actually the classes I was in at the time weren't bad. They're actually really fun classes, but the fact that the end was near is just like on your brain the whole time. You're like, okay, I just have to get above a blank grade in this. I just have to get above a blank grade in this, which for all the classes like is so easy because you do it in all the other classes you're in college for. But then it's like your advisor tells you and you get all those letters. You're like, are you ready to graduate? Do you need to like sign up for this? You need to pick up your cap and gown. It's like, oh God, like it's real.
Another level of things to do other than focus on, doing what you need to do in class. Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, it's fun. It like there's this excitement to it, but I mean, I cried at graduation, so I mean, I do miss Purdue.
I mean, I guarantee I'll be emotional after.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and particularly in my situation after failing out of college one time and then coming back to it like 10 years later, and then finally I'm going to predict and assume that I'm going to finish this time around.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, like going through that journey, it's just gonna be like, holy shit! Like it took a while. It was definitely the road less traveled as far as getting a college degree, but god damn it, I did it.
Yeah, you Robert Frosted it. Robert Frosted it real hard. And no, I think if you didn't, I drive to where you live because you sent me your address. I'm gonna kick your ass if you don't. Like I'm gonna go beat you up.
The government is going to be demanding a lot of money back if I don't graduate.
Oh yeah, they'll come beat you up as well. So like we'll show up at the same time and just kick the shit out of you. So you better finish.
Yeah, because with the GI Bill, like you have to repay that money if you don't get a degree out of it.
Really?
Oh yeah, they're making sure that their money is being well spent and properly spent because it's not, obviously most people know it ain't fucking cheap to send someone to college.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a thing. It's definitely it's a sacrifice, and definitely like you have to change certain things in your lifestyle unless you're like the 1% of 1% who are just like, cool, let's do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, good for you for being back. Are you a junior this year technically?
I have been a senior in standing, like credit standing, for the past like 2 semesters, I believe, with my transfer credits and all the shit I got done at Ball State. So I'm like a super duper senior.
Oh.
And Purdue actually sent me an email a couple weeks back saying like, hey, you have like 60 credit hours left to finish your degree because of your standing. So they weren't like, come on, chop chop. But it was just like, hey, for your information, like, we cannot let you sign up for more than for any more credits after
a certain time
hours, right? But like, I will be done far less time than what it takes to get 60 credit hours.
How many is that? That's like 2 semesters.
I think it's like 4 semesters.
Oh, it's 4
like
semesters.
On average, like an average of like 15 credit hours.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Interesting. I know. I'm doing the whole grad school route now, and it's similar but different. Like the classes are like 4 hours long, but it's only twice a week for 4 hours. And for what I'm doing, the place that I think I'm going to before I announce anything, they are partners with a gigantic film studio, like holy shit big. And some of the classes are at the film studio apparently. Because I was just looking it up online, like where do I have classes, blah, 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 blah. Like how far do I have to drive? And it's like some are there, some are at the campus. Some are this particular school. It has like multiple campuses in the same city. It's kind of like, because it's part of the city, it's like spread out. And yeah, so that's something I have to.
It's Bollywood, isn't it? You're going to India.
I am going to India. I'm so glad I can speak Hindi because it's going to save me. It's going to save me so much out over there. But yeah, no, I've been getting into Bollywood films a little bit because I feel like it's good to educate yourself on it. The only thing is the Bollywood style is so different than Hollywood. It's just like the format. I'm like, it's cool, it's interesting, and like, it's kind of similar as like if you're taking like French cinema or something. You're like, it's interesting, but it's so different, like the way they convey things. But it's like, it's so taxing. I can't do more than one a week. I'm like, I got to go back to.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever watched a proper Bollywood film. Like the closest thing I can even think of, and it just has like elements at the very end of something Bollywood is like Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah,
and that was made by a major directorial talent and like, but he definitely put in that Bollywood like dance number at the end.
Yeah,
because of the influences of the culture.
Yeah, and then I think they filmed a lot of it in India.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It's Jesus Christ. Slumdog Millionaire is a fantastic film. That was like 2008, I think. 2007 or 2008.
Around that, yeah.
Yeah.
Period.
No, it was really good. I love that movie. And yeah, I think if you ask someone Bollywood from like normal, like America, they'll say like Slumdog Millionaire or Life of Pi, which also is not a Bollywood movie. It's just the lead actor is Indian. But yeah, no, it's interesting. And I've just been trying to like branch out, and it's so difficult if you don't know where to start. But yeah. That's the thing. And going on that, let's talk about this movie. So
yeah, this is a movie. Well, what we're going to get to, it's going to take. Yeah, we're probably not going to be branching off into a bunch of sides much, because this is forewarning to our listeners. This is an episode that might get heavy. It probably will get heavy. We're going to be talking about some stuff we don't normally talk about.
Yeah,
but with talking about this film, we would not be able to honestly approach and discuss this film and dissect it without getting into this dirty shit that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so, and we're not discussing this just to ruffle feathers, and we're going to try to be as...
Yes, that's important.
Yeah, we're going to try to be as, like, lighthearted about this film as possible, but it's an important film, and I think we're going to start maybe doing a few other films that will be nominated for Academy Awards this year, before the Academy Awards, just like some of the ones that we kind of want to see, or that we like haven't, or one of us hasn't seen, or both of us, just so we can talk about it on here. But yeah, just like spoiler warning first. And if you don't want to hear about it, or you don't agree with what we might say, go do another episode. This is like episode 62 or something. We have a bunch of other ones if you don't want to listen to this. So without further ado, Ben, what are we talking about?
We're going to be talking about Spike Lee's latest joint, BlacKkKlansman.
Yes. So, BlacKkKlansman, for those of you who don't know, is a true story about Ron Stallworth, a detective from... He's not from Colorado, but he got transferred to Colorado, and he accidentally put himself in a situation where he needed to go undercover and proxy undercover to infiltrate the Ku Klux Klan in the 70s. And he's still alive.
Yes, and I think the script is mostly based off his autobiography that he wrote about this experience.
The only thing that didn't happen the way it is in the film is there's a bomb at the end with a car. It didn't happen like that. I believe the bomb did go off, but I don't think it happened that same way. But he did get beaten up by police officers trying to stop something near the end. But we'll get into the movie kind of scene by scene. But I think we should start with the scene that leaves everyone kind of speechless, which is the final scene of the film, which isn't narratively part of the film. And it
definitely pretty much puts a period at the end of what Spike Lee has been leading up to with or through the story. There's definitely points in points in dialogue in the movie that they're pretty on the nose about modern racial divides and particularly important political figures that kind of stoke these racial divides. But yeah, the last sequence is
it's pretty tough to watch.
It's rough. It's rough to watch. Yes, because of everything that Lee has built up to there. He's basically just like, this is what all of this is led up to.
So before we get into this anymore, Ben and I are both white guys from the United States, so a lot of this I don't know from experience. But I will say on this podcast definitively, we're going to talk about a certain individual in this podcast who likes to tweet a lot that I am very much not a fan of. I think Ben also is probably not a fan of this individual who tweets a lot, who we will talk about, who looks like a melting creamsicle and unfortunately runs our country right now. Or not really runs our country. So that being said, the final scene is found footage. So it's from like iPhones. It's from cameras of the racial riots in Charlottesville from 2016 or 2017.
2017.
So it's 2017.
August of 2017.
For those of you who don't know what's happening, the alt-right movement staged a gathering of sorts.
Unite the right.
Unite the right. And when you get enough white people with tiki torches together, shit's gonna go down. And it did go down. And people who have solid brains in their heads came out to also voice their freedom of speech. And as most of you may know, these movements, this one ended in deaths. There was a member of the alt-right movement who mowed through people with his car and just went through the crowd and just kept running over people. The film shows this. It's not part of the film. It is literally like someone's phone video. So you see everything. You see someone die. And at the end, it has a tribute to this individual who's actually white. I believe there's two other people, but the person they tribute is a younger girl who was killed in this like senseless violence is the one they show. And then the final shots of the film are of Donald Trump and his line saying there was bad people on both sides. And there's no music playing, there's nothing, and it's just that shot from like CNN or something. And then the final frame of the film is a black and white American flag reversed upside down. And then it's like in memory of all the like freedom fighters. So let's talk about that first.
Yeah, like we said before, it's a heavy thing to watch. Actual footage of people being to put it blunt, it's actual footage of a terrorist attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
not gonna pull punches there. What happened was a terrorist attack. It was a domestic terrorist attack. And then for Trump to basically just say that, or push the matter to the side and try and say that there's good people on both sides, like I don't. It's hard to fathom how he survived saying something like that, unless you consider that there is a significant portion of the country that agrees with him.
And that is the saddest thing. And it's the most upsetting thing. And to like lighten it up, there was a funny-ish like quote from somebody recently where he was like, you know what's weird? Why are Nazis a thing again? I thought we got rid of them. And it is funny and like kind of joking as that is, it's real. And when you have someone who's so stupid and so ignorant who says things, people will listen because people don't educate themselves. That's a completely separate issue. But when it's like when you do as like your parents do, right? Like if you grow up in a household that does something, you're likely to do that. Looking at like the leader of a country, it's just on a way bigger scale. Same kind of like idea. And that the film demonstrates that very well. And for all of you who are listening who may not agree with our statements, we're sorry, but we're still going to say them because guess what? It's our podcast. But so that's how the film ends. But that scene could have been at the beginning of the film.
I don't think it would have worked nearly as well, though.
Narratively speaking, it's not connected to the film. Is kind of what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah. So
but putting it at the end is, I think, it was the best decision and the best way to really hammer it home that, like, hey, everything that was more overt and like outward about the KKK back in the 70s and and prior, of course the KKK, but I would say probably not as like open as it maybe used to be, even though it was still kind of a clandestine organization. People really didn't want their names being associated with it. But yeah, Spike Lee basically saying like, hey, racism, it's still prevalent and it is still causing the deaths of innocent people.
Yeah. And
now we have a person in a high office, the highest office in the land, who is basically cheering it on.
Yeah. And the worst thing is when thinking about it, it's not like pointing a finger, me knowing what is happening. It's like, does he know what he's doing or is he too stupid? I don't know which one is worse. And that's kind of what this film, those final scenes really demonstrate. Like, does this idiot really know what he's saying? Or is he just saying what's being told to him, like through his ear? And I don't know which one is worse. And this film, when you walk out of it, I haven't been left speechless from a film in a very long time. I don't actually remember the last film I left, and I really genuinely felt like, oh my God. Like, the film itself is fantastic, and we'll talk about that in a second here, but those final scenes are something that it was very brave of Spike Lee and the production team and the studios involved to put that in. And I'm really, I'm happy that, studios and distributors and creatives can do this and feel proud of doing this and get recognized for doing something like this. Because it really shows people that, no matter how much hate there is out there, you can fight it. And, it just takes people being positive and people being, better than it to one day hopefully destroy it. And I think that's one of the biggest messages in this film is positivity can destroy hate.
Yeah, positivity and kind of creativity, really. Yeah. Because, going back to kind of the main plot, Ron Stallworth, basically just if I remember correctly, he kind of just on a whim decides to call up the local chapter of the Klan and just impersonate. He does his white voice, I guess.
Yeah,
and he gets in pretty much immediately.
Yeah. So the plot of the film, we'll get into it. It shows very interestingly, it opens in such a way where it shows the Klan perspective and then the kind of like Black Panther kind of perspective as well. So it sets up this divide. And it sets up like, here's what these people think. Here's what these people think. There's a divide here, and it sets up this tension instantly for the film. And it's very effective for what the film does right off the bat. And it introduces all the characters that you need to pretty quickly. It introduces the Ron Stallworth, who's a police officer, who's black, who's actually played like incredibly by John David Washington, who is Denzel Washington's son. And in the beginning of the film, Ron Stallworth, the character, is dating a girl or seeing a girl undercover, who is part of this all-black fraternity in her university, and she's very anti-police. And Ron Stallworth is saying kind of like, hey, not all cops are bad. Like, you know, you can have a black cop who's trying to do the right thing in a system that may not be exactly the right system. And she's like, well, you can't, because if you're bad, you're bad. If you're good, you're good. And looking at it in absolutes. And Ron Stallworth is like, you can't do that. You can't justifiably do this to people. And he can't tell her he's a cop.
Right. I think in this portion of it where they kind of have their back and forth about kind of police brutality against African Americans and all that. I think Spike Lee does a pretty good job he does a good balancing act of explaining, like, yes, of course, everyone knows that not all cops are bad and not all cops participate in this despicable, like beatings or killings of black people. But on the other hand, it's like, he does point out that if you are just standing by and not actively participating in trying to stomp out this racism, like, are you not just as bad? Like, are you not as complicit in what's going on?
Yeah.
So he doesn't offer an absolute or a definitive answer. He's posing those questions to be thought about and discussed.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those like kind of devil's advocate sort of things, and I think it's one of the things a lot of parents tell their kids when like you're trying to teach your kids empathy and you're trying to teach your kid perspective, where it's like, well, you didn't help them. What about the people in Germany with the Nazis? What about that? And then it makes you think, you're like, oh wait, maybe saying something is important, kind of thing. Like when like parents tell their kids that. My parents did that to me, where they're like, what about the Nazis? Or what about these other things where people just stood by? And then you're like, oh no. And then you can see it in a million different places in a million different situations in life. But it's that which the film offers very eloquently and in a subtle way, but still very forcefully, in like, it's telling you very obviously, but the film isn't like, look at me. And that's a lot of the dialogue is like that, because it's like, it's very easy to read between the lines.
Yeah, there's a few parts that are, I think, purposefully on the nose.
Yes.
In particular, Stallworth is talking to, I want to say, his sergeant, and his sergeant is trying to explain to him like what at the time Grand Wizard of the KKK David Duke was trying to do with the organization, trying to give it the more professional look instead of like the backwood hicks like lynching people left and right. He's trying to be the more politicized. He's the Grand Wizard that shows up in a suit.
Yeah.
And Stallworth is he's like saying like, how could someone like that, as racist like that, ever, hold high office or something like that?
Yeah.
And they might as well have just like stamped a picture of Donald Trump like on the screen at the same time. But yes. I think that was purposeful. I think Spike Lee had every intention of making that a piece of dialogue that was like, you know what we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes we have to spell it out for a lot of people.
Yeah, because when you look at the film in that kind of perspective, it's like, oh whoa, like, because the David Duke in the film is played incredibly and very hauntingly by Topher Grace, who we all know from that 70s show.
And when they actually show some footage of David Duke. I think he was at that Unite the Right rally. They show some footage of him at the end. They look eerily similar too.
They do. Like
Topher Grace looks like he could absolutely pass for a young David Duke back in the 70s.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And I think some of the most, in a weird way, like chilling scenes are in David Duke's office, where Ron Stallworth begins to pretend to be a white guy to get in with the KKK. And he calls up David Duke, and David Duke's office is this like really big kind of empty thing with like swastikas and just sort of Nazi like memorabilia, like things like scattered around. But he's incredibly charming on the phone and very charismatic, where it's one of those things where like people tell you like the devil is charming. It's not like a monster. Like the scariest people are incredibly nice and charming, and they draw you in. And I think Topher Grace's portrayal of David Duke is so good, because you like, there's a part of you like, wow, this is a really nice guy. But then you're like, oh wait, he's the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. This guy's a monster. And he's so eloquent and so professional. And you're just like, what? How? Like, how can such an educated person be such a moron?
Yeah, I think Topher Grace's casting was awesome, because he was the star of like a mostly like wholesome and very popular sitcom, and so to have that sort of juxtaposition of the like kind of boy next door for like how he came to fame to a racist piece of shit.
Yeah,
I think that was a brilliant piece of casting to show that this type of thinking is very insidious, and it can creep in hold of you if you're not careful about who you're talking to. Like, because racism isn't just exclusive to backwoods hillbillies who spout the N-word left and right.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people that will try and pass that message along with a smile on their face and their tie straightened and slicked back hair. Yeah, it's scary to have to try and figure out who to. I mean, this is going to sound paranoid, but like who to trust and who. Yeah. But these people are. The face of racism has changed. It
really has, and this film displays that very well. And so why the movie is called BlacKkKlansman is because Ron Stallworth makes a very big mistake when he first calls the Klan. And he calls this guy named Walter, who's like the Klan chapter member in Colorado, who's really, really well played by Ryan Eggold. He was very charming as well in this movie. And he calls him and he's like, well, have a nice white day kind of thing on the phone. And Ron Stallworth says, oh, my name's Ron Stallworth. And then he hangs up the phone. He's like, oh, shit. And then he needs to get his partner, Adam Driver, who his name is Flip Zimmerman. And Flip Zimmerman in real life and in the film is a Jewish guy. And Adam Driver's like, dude, I don't want to do this. Like, dude, I can't pretend to be you. He's like, well, you just have to go there in person and I'll talk to him on the phone and then we can be the same guy. And it takes a little like convincing, but Adam Driver's character does go through with it and goes to like chapter meetings. Is that the right term? Like Klan.
Yeah, that's what I would call them.
Yeah, like Klan chapter meetings. And that's when the film really starts to pick up, because there's this tension where a lot of the members of this Klan chapter, probably as in all reality, a lot of people who are in the Klan are just like kind of like bumbling idiots about it. And they're just like, yeah, bro, like have a nice white day. Let's go gamble with our friends and shoot guns in the backyard. Like that good old Southern boy thing, which is totally fine. But then there's this weird, horrible, racial, aggressive undertone to it, where it shows you these members of the Klan who are just like hanging out like how a bunch of dudes in the South might. But then they're like, oh yeah, they're wearing swastikas. Oh shit. And the film really, really does that very delicately, because you don't hate all of these members for their personality. You hate them for what they're doing. And it's so easy that you could make all these Klan members in this movie monsters. You could make them all like this, what in most of our heads we would think of as someone in the Klan, this aggressive, evil creature. And one of the characters is, and his name in the film is Felix, but it's played by Jasper. I'm going to mispronounce his last name because I think it's like a Danish last name. But Pekkonen is...
I have no clue how I would pronounce that.
He has a lot of like umlauts above the vowels in his name.
Yeah, so like 3 umlauts in his name.
Yeah, so I think it's Pekkonen, maybe. But he's incredible. Like, he, I think, is the main antagonist of the film in a lot of ways. And when Adam Driver, fake Ron Stallworth, is talking to him, this character of Felix is like malicious and like interrogating him, and is like very... A lot of the other Klan members are very anti-black, as sort of like their thing. But this character of Felix is very anti-Jew. And Adam Driver's character in the film is Jewish. And it really gives Adam Driver's character this thing to lean in where he's like, oh my God, I've never thought about being Jewish until someone hated me for being Jewish.
And that was, his kind of B story I really enjoyed because his arc of growing up not kind of being, or not what's the word I'm thinking of? Not considering himself Jewish because he never practiced the religion. Mm-hmm. He just knew it was a hereditary type of thing. His arc goes from it's not something I really identify with to like, exactly what you said. When I'm face to face with people that actively hate who I am and what I am, then it starts to become like, okay, I understand like why this is so bad because it's not something you can fully grasp until that hate is being spewed right in your face. Yeah,
and the film, I think from that point where that's when he interrogates him in the basement with the polygraph. And I think after that point is where the film really gets this tension and gets this like dichotomy where you start seeing the Klan meetings and then you start seeing this the Black chapter meetings back to back, where the Black chapter is holding a rally outside of their fraternity sorority house, where it's like a whole thing, and then the Klan knows about this. So the Klan has a plot to place a bomb at the chapter's house to blow up all these college kids who are African American, or even like white kids who decide to go to this meeting or go to this like rally. And that's where the film starts to really like the two sides, which kind of were connected through Ron Stallworth, start to be connected through all the other characters because this whole thing is happening. David Duke is coming to town to personally meet Ron Stallworth to initiate him into the Ku Klux Klan. And Adam Driver, pretending to be Ron Stallworth, has to be initiated into the Klan under a fake name. So they do all of this identity fraud stuff through like the police station, and they really try to pull like a sting operation. They're like, okay, we need you to be Ron Stallworth. We need you to hang out with David Duke and do all of this. Like, you need to go through with this. You need to become a Klan member. And I don't remember exactly how, but the police commissioner sets the actual Ron Stallworth, the black guy, as David Duke's bodyguard.
Yeah, I don't think they ever really explained why they assign Ron as his as David Duke's personal like bodyguard during this initiation.
Yeah,
it's just kind of shown as like, hey, we're taking you off your current assignment. You need to do this one. It's never they don't really say why other than just like this is what the chief is wanting.
Yeah,
and I kind of got the sense that like maybe the chief is a little bit racist himself.
Yeah,
but they didn't fully like dissect that sort of situation. It just kind of happened.
Yeah, and I think it's like one of those things where he is, but he's also like a nice guy. He's like on the fence. Like he has these ideas, but then there's a side of him that like, oh, I want my officers to succeed in this thing, because he's like has these like his own ideas, but then he's like, well, I also hate the Klan. And then it's kind of like one of those, maybe if he is the one who assigned it, he just wasn't thinking of like what the hell is about to happen. But this final part of the film, the final like 30, 40 minutes are really tense, because this at the time, Adam Driver, Ron Stallworth, is being initiated into the Klan. The members of the Colorado chapter are going to blow up this black frat.
I think the plan A was they were going to bomb a hotel with a very important speaker that is with the black student union.
Yeah, Kwame.
Like the older gentleman, not Kwame Tour.
Oh, the actual guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole sequence where this older gentleman is telling a story about witnessing a black man being falsely accused of, I think, sexual assault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then being basically like dismembered
in public.
And at the same time, the Klan, after Adam Driver's initiation, they are watching a film viewing of
Birth of a Nation.
A Birth of a Nation, yeah, which is that's a very interesting sequence, putting those two side by side. But yeah, that the plan A was for them to was for Felix's wife to plant the bomb at that hotel. Cops are all over the place, so she kind of chickens out of that one, and they go to plan B, where they was to take that bomb to the sorority house or wherever. Yeah. Ron Stallworth's girlfriend, or the person he's dating, who she lives there, and she's the president of the Black Student Union. Yeah. Who's ruffling feathers and making a name for herself. And so that's plan B.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about this scene, besides the fact that it's really powerful when they're watching A Birth of a Nation, which I think we'll explain in a second for most people who don't know what that is, the film, when you're watching the white people doing The Birth of a Nation after the initiation of the Klan, you hear the audio from the black fraternity and this civil rights leader talking about what they did to this guy in public. And then when you see, then it transitions to being what you hear from the Klan side when you're watching the black frat. So they intercross them, and it's really powerful. And it works very well. Like there's like an audio transition and the visual transition go back and forth seamlessly. And whoever the editor, cinematographer who are working with Spike Lee, seriously, like an incredible job.
Yes, absolutely. And then to add another level of tension, the second that kind of switching segment like ends, Adam Driver's character basically gets found out.
Yeah.
He gets found out at the initiation gathering by one of the Klan members who remembers Adam Driver's character from years ago, who sent him as the cop that sent him to prison, and he knows about his Jewish identity,
and he knows his name isn't Ron Stallworth.
It's Flip, whatever.
Yeah, Zimmerman.
That's right.
And I think one of the coolest. So you continue with your thing, and then I'll go to what I was going to say.
Right. So the person that pretty much sees or remembers Flip Zimmerman as the guy that arrested him tells Felix, the kind of biggest asshole of all the Klan assholes, is like, hey, this guy is not Ron Stallworth. This guy's Zimmerman. He's a Jew. And Felix basically is like, I knew it this whole time, because Felix, from the very beginning, he's the one that's been really pressing Adam Driver, like saying like, hey, you look like a Jewish person. You look like a cop. Like he's the one that's always had his suspicions about him. So basically his suspicions were confirmed. And luckily, before they can actually confront Driver's character, like basically right in front of David Duke while they're all eating dinner, Felix's wife, who was responsible for planting the bomb, has to calls in and says like, hey, the plan's not going well. I need you guys to come here and, fix this. And so they have to leave. Driver's character basically, like, right after they leave, he's like, okay, yeah, I gotta go too. And he takes off as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because he knows he's been found out.
Yeah. So that scene is super tense. And the Ron Stallworth picture with David Duke is one of the coolest scenes in the film.
Yeah.
Where he has David Duke on one side and then the other chapter member on the other side. And they're like, Ron Stallworth is wearing like aviator glasses, like a big like necklace with like Africa on it. And he's like wearing like a denim jacket with denim pants, looking like super cool. Like the most badass thing you could wear doing that. And he's like, let's do a picture. And he grabs both of them by the shoulders right when they take the picture. And it's one of the coolest shots in the film because they show the real picture. When the celluloid gets developed, they cut to the actual photo.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, they cut to the real picture, and I'm like, that's super cool.
It's so quick when they show the Polaroid.
It's like a second.
Like, yeah. Oh man, I have to go watch that again because I just thought it was a picture of Washington and Topher Grace and the other fella. And they flip out.
I could be wrong. But when I saw the movie and I rewatched it last week, I thought that again. I'm like, isn't that a real picture? Just the way it looks when they cut to it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to watch it again to see that as well. But yeah, Topher Grace and the other guy's reaction is they're disgusted because they just had, Ron Stallworth's arms give them a big old hug, and that's something I don't think we've talked about enough is that this movie isn't completely like, drama, tension, and just like downer. This is a really funny movie too.
It really is. It is very. It in some ways is almost like a dark comedy.
Yes. Yeah. Like I said, I think from what we've been talking about, we've really made this movie to be like a serious like dissection of racism, which in a way it is. But there's a lot of humor in this film. Like there's some laugh out loud moments in this film so that's another reason why it's so good.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about this film and say anything really negative, except the only negative thing I have to say is part of the real story. Why the hell did Ron Stallworth say his name was Ron Stallworth? Like, dude, you just made a huge tactical error. Like, that's not a problem with the film. That's like, if I talked to the real Ron Stallworth, I'd be like, dude, what were you thinking? Like, and they answer that in the movie. It's like, oh shit. Like, I just made a gigantic mistake.
Yeah, and Driver and the rest of the people at the station, they're busting his balls about it. They're like, yeah, dumbass. Like, why'd you use your real name?
Yeah, and I think some of the funniest lines in the entire movie, I think some of the funniest, not lines, like the moments are when Ron Stallworth is in the police station talking to the Klan members on the phone, and he himself is like saying like, oh, I hate like black people. I hate all this stuff. He's like, well, have a nice white day. And everyone in the police station is like speechless. And he hangs up the phone. He's like, what are you guys looking at? And it's just like that like tension and that like subtle comedy with it works so well to like break the like everyone holding their breath in the cinema. And then you're like, oh, okay, we can laugh for a second. And then you're like, okay, whew. But yeah, and I think it maybe you'll disagree or agree. I think one of the coolest, like cinematography wise, one of the coolest scenes is the convoy for Ron Stallworth and David Duke. The music that's playing, and it's silent besides this music that's like it's just drums when they're leaving from this like facility where they, or this like hotel where they pick up David Duke to the place where they have the initiation for the Klan. That's a really cool scene.
It is, and it does very it gives you the sense that this is building up to something big. It does that very well.
Yeah, and even if you've never seen a movie before and don't know like climax in film, you're like, uh-oh. It's building. The music itself, like, even if you just listen to that audio, it just makes you tense. And it's really good. And then I think we should talk about the bomb scene, which is like kind of the final thing. And then the final scene where Ron Stallworth and his girlfriend are in the apartment and they see the cross from across the hallway.
Yeah. The bomb scene is definitely, it's like the highest peak of tension in this film. Like, basically, you know that Felix and his small group are going to help Felix's wife basically plant this bomb, make sure that it goes off. Because I think, Felix's wife has the package, the bomb. It's in like her purse or her handbag. And I want to say Felix or one of his people have the detonator. Is that correct?
Yeah, so,
okay.
Yeah, one of them has the detonator or something, and she, like, backs out. Like, does she... No, she puts the bomb next to her car. Like, on the tire.
After she can't fit the, like, C4 package in the mailbox.
Yeah.
It won't fit, and that's when actually, what is her name? Patrice. I want to say Patrice is her name. Patrice is Ron Stallworth's girlfriend, or person he's dating, whatever you want to call it. Her and her friend come home as
the bomb's being placed.
Felix's wife is trying to plant this bomb, so she panics, walks away before being seen. But after they go inside, she starts to plant the bomb next to their car.
Yes,
and this is when, as she's planting the car and walking away, Ron is screaming up in his car. He sees her walking. He's trying to like stop her, like, "Hey, you get back here now!" And as he's like trying to apprehend her as a police officer, she's screaming like, "Help! This black man is trying to like rape me or assault me."
Yeah.
And two white police officers show up in their squad car, and they immediately like tackle him and start to beat him.
Yes.
And I was deathly afraid that this is where the movie was going to just basically end.
Yeah, I thought so too. I was like, oh man, because before I went in, I knew Ron Stallworth was still alive. So I'm like, they're not going to kill him here. But I'm like, is this how the film ends? It just cuts off at this spot? Because technically,
basically he gets arrested. The bomb may or may not go off, but basically just like the Klan people in this, like our main antagonist in the Klan, get away. Yeah, that's what I was so afraid of. It's just like it's the reality of the situation and what may have happened, and it's hell. You can't even count how many times black people have been falsely accused and arrested for shit that they haven't done.
Yeah,
and, assaulted by police officers. I thought this was just how it was going to be. Yeah. And it was going to be an incredible downer, but it does not end up like that.
And so what happens then is Ron Stallworth is being like beaten up by two other officers where Ron's a detective, so he's above them rank-wise. And he's like, yo, I'm a cop. And he shows him the stuff. So they kind of slow down on the beating him up, but they're still holding him on the ground. And the wife of Felix, the antagonist from the Klan, is there, and Felix pulls up to the house, and they detonate the bomb, and it's right next to his car because he doesn't realize, and it kills him. And then the shot is of the wife just screaming in terror that her stupidity, his stupidity, got him killed. Like, their hate and wrongful doing and trying to kill innocent people backfired. And I think that's one of the most poetic justice deaths I've ever seen in a film.
It is, absolutely. And then Adam Driver's character then pulls up in his car, sets the record straight with the two white cops, like, hey, this guy is a cop, like, get the fuck off of him. Yeah. And then basically after that, it transitions to kind of the post-climax sort of winding down of the movie.
Yeah, where there's a shot, it's kind of like a weird surrealist shot where like they like look through a door and they see the Klan like burning across like miles away, but it's like a really interesting kind of warping zoom shot to it.
Yeah, this is Ron and Patrice, after Ron had his final conversation on the phone with David Duke, and Ron reveals to David Duke that he has been a black man this whole time through their phone conversations.
Yeah.
And I think it's through that conversation that Duke gets a group of Klansmen to set up this, burning cross, a mile away from
his apartment
building, but within clear eye view from their window.
Yeah, which shows that, you may have defeated evil today. It's like you won the battle, but the war hasn't been won yet. And it's a very haunting scene because it's silent and it's just these Klan members in their robes. Is that?
Yeah.
In their robes, throwing their torches onto the big wooden burning cross. And it's a very haunting scene. And then the film concludes with the found footage from the riots.
Yep, this film it's a very interesting movie. It's funny, it's poignant. It's just there's not enough positive things I have to say about it. It was definitely one of my favorite movies I've seen this year, or movies from 2018 that I saw, because technically I watched it in the year 2019.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a film that I think a lot of people really need to see. Not only for its filmmaking, not only for the good elements of filmmaking, editing, shot composition, and all that stuff, acting, but just everything Spike Lee has to say in this movie needs to be heard. Yes,
I have seen the Academy Award as the recording of this podcast. The Academy Awards have not happened for 2019. They have not been announced who the nominees are. But this film, out of all the ones that I've seen that I'm guessing will probably be nominated this year for Best Picture, that I've seen, just in my head, the 5 or 6 that I can think of. There's always 10 films that get nominated. This one might be the one that should win. Just insofar as how important it is, how well done it is. It's a true story. And I think it's a story that is really important for our time today, but a film that you can look at for film schools for 30 years from now, 50 years from now, where you're 1, this is a real story. 2, it was made in an era where this was needed. And 3, just what it all means together, looking at the future and the present, and even the past, present, and the future implications of this film. It's one of those movies that you watch it's a tricky watch to get through because it's really powerful and it leaves you with a lot of things to think about. But it only gets better every time you rewatch it.
Yeah, I think it has a very good shot of making the list of nominees for Best Picture. Maybe a lot of the major awards like actor or director for Spike Lee, maybe screenplay. I'm not sure about that one,
mm-hmm.
But the Academy, if their past nominations and choices for winner, if those kind of stay in the same sort of pattern that they have, the Academy does like to recognize and award movies that do have to do with race and racial grievances and the racial divide in America. Long time ago, Crash won, even though I think a lot of people thought that wasn't necessarily the best movie of the year. However, it dealt with a lot of racial topics for the late 2000s. I think it was a 2006 or 2007 movie.
Yeah.
12 Years a Slave won.
Yes.
In which that was definitely a deserving one. That's a fantastic movie. Not one that you want to just pop in the old Blu-ray player and watch, because that's a fucking rough movie to watch.
And
but I think BlacKkKlansman has a great chance of winning,
especially because Moonlight won.
Yes, Moonlight as well.
And Moonlight's another movie. There's similar-ish themes in Moonlight as this. Moonlight's a very, very different kind of film about a very different kind of issue. But I think this film, if it wins, I'm incredibly happy. It deserves it. And Spike Lee deserves it. Just because this film, it could have come off as preachy in a bad way, but there's a preachiness kind of like, hey, to it, but there's also a side of it that's like, oh, wow, this is just a good film. It's not like okay, we get it, yeah. But it's one of those things where you watch it, and you're just like, oh, wow, there's a problem. And someone handled it very eloquently. And it makes it less painful to get through. It's kind of like looking at a film in a way like Schindler's List, where it's an incredibly painful topic, incredibly real topic, but if you handle it with that much grace and that much professionalism, you can sit through it and look at it as something like greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, and this is the situation that the main plot revolves around is definitely, you find the humor in it. Mm-hmm. A black man infiltrating the Klan, that's inherently funny.
Yeah, it is.
Because it tags the Klan as a bunch of fucking buffoons, mm-hmm. and like, you know, dullards that would let themselves get played like this. So you can definitely find the humor in it, and I think that's what definitely sets this apart, as it takes on these serious issues, but it balances it with that humor and the comedic elements of the film. When you, at the same time, like something like 12 Years a Slave, there's not anything within that story that is remotely funny.
Oh yeah,
it's a movie that needed to be tackled with a seriousness, with a delicate touch that shows the severity of the institution of slavery and what it did to an entire race of people.
Yeah,
that's a thing that, yeah, you got to take this shit deadly serious, but it can be shown in a way that is, you know,
it's consumable.
Consumable, yes, that's the perfect word.
Yeah, because entertaining there's a funness to the word entertaining. If you're listening and you haven't seen 12 Years a Slave, you should see it. It's not hey, sit down with your family and watch this.
Block off like a Friday evening that you don't have any plans, but so you have the weekend to recover as well.
Yeah. If you've seen Schindler's List or Amistad or something like that, it's a similar kind of feel where you're like, oh God, people can be the worst. And yeah, Ben's right. Give yourself a Friday evening and then just sit there, and then Saturday, Sunday, go watch a bunch of comedies afterwards, because you're going to need it. But it's an important film to watch. BlacKkKlansman isn't that, but it's important in a different way, where you don't need to like go watch a bunch of Judd Apatow movies afterwards to balance yourself out. But this film, I left it speechless. And I think this, as a review of the film, one, it's a very in-depth review. Two, I think it's a thing where Ben and I both agree how important this is and why you shouldn't watch it. You need to watch it.
Agreed.
And Spike Lee he did it again.
Yeah. He's, if not already, I mean, I'm pretty sure that anybody that reasonably views films and is like a film buff or a fan of filmmaking would say that Spike Lee is already, like, you know, he's got his place in, like, if there ever was like a Hall of Fame for filmmakers, he's
there.
Yeah, but absolutely. And this film is just like, all right, add it to the resume. The dude's still kicking ass.
Yeah, I think if you had a Mount Rushmore of American filmmakers, so like, yeah, there's like Guillermo del Toro, who's an incredible filmmaker, but he's from Mexico. So like filmmakers who were born in the U.S., American filmmakers, is why I'm saying it like this. Not that those guys aren't American filmmakers, for people who are about to get upset. But I think if you're going to do one of American filmmakers like right now who are alive, because yes, we've had like so many incredible filmmakers in the United States, because film has been around since the beginning of the 1900s. And you can put like all these people on that list. But I think right now it would probably be Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, Spike Lee, and then fourth on that list, who would be
Michael Bay.
Oh God. Who would be fourth? Like a living director, an American living director who you could put on that with those other three legends.
Do they have to be universally liked, I guess?
I don't think Spike Lee is universally liked.
Probably not, yeah. Because I was gonna say like Tarantino.
I think you could probably put Tarantino on there just for the legacy he'll leave.
Yeah, I mean, because like we talked about with Pulp Fiction last episode, that's like a defining movie of the 90s, of the entire decade.
Yeah, it really is. I think Tarantino, probably should be on that list. And I mean, people can argue all these other people, but at least the three that we mentioned first, obviously. And I think Spike Lee out of all of them might be the most divisive because, I mean, if you guys haven't seen the movie Do the Right Thing, it's a Spike Lee movie. He's actually the main character in it. Go watch that. Do the Right Thing is pretty awesome. It's also very sad. There's a lot of very sad, real things that happen in that film, but it's a pretty awesome film.
Yeah, he's made several incredibly good movies. Do the Right Thing, Bamboozled,
yeah.
He Got Game. That's just, off the top of my head that I can think of right now. But yeah, if you're not familiar with his line of work and his filmography, check it out. Like, he's a good filmmaker. He's got things to say, and he doesn't pull punches. That's for damn sure. Especially, if you've seen BlacKkKlansman, he's got it right there. Like, he's gonna tell you what he's got on his mind. And the Malcolm X.
Yeah, he did Malcolm X because I'm looking through his filmography. The ones that the most amount of people just universally listening would know. I'm just looking for it. Yeah, he's done a lot of like documentary-ish stuff as well, and a lot of like post-blaxploitation type things. But really everything he's done is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
I actually haven't seen Chirac, the one he did before BlacKkKlansman.
Yeah, that's one I haven't seen either.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things. Some people love it, some people hate it, and it's one of those ones I'm like, I should probably watch this because I know some people who are like, yo, it's really, really good, and other people are like, it's not that good.
I guess one of them that I'm scrolling through his filmography. One that I saw was more on the negative side. I think I have not seen it, but his remake of Old Boy.
Yeah,
I think that one was not taken very well. Which is that's a different direction for him.
Yeah,
it's more of a mainstream movie when he's usually like he does his own thing.
Yeah, he does do his own thing. For those of you who don't know what Old Boy is, it's a Korean film, I believe. Maybe it's Japanese.
I think it's Korean.
Oh, it's a Korean film. If you guys like a movie with a crazy twist, there's a twist in Old Boy. And if you like a movie that is incredibly visceral and will make you kind of want to take a shower afterwards, watch Old Boy.
The original.
Yeah, the original one. It's probably from like 2004 or something.
Around there.
Watch it. Do yourself a favor. I think maybe the greatest single fight scene of all time is in Old Boy. There's a fight scene in a hallway with 36 people, and apparently it took them forever to orchestrate that because it's very elaborate, and I don't know how they filmed that. Like, it's really well filmed. Whoever the cinematographer is a genius on that film. And go watch the original Old Boy. Sorry in advance for the end. Have you seen the movie Crying Games with Forrest Whitaker?
The Crying Game?
Yeah. It's like that. It's like, sorry for the end of this film in advance. Because
that's one of the most infamous the holy shit twists at the end.
Yeah. I saw that movie with my dad. He showed me that when I was like 15, and I was like, what the hell is this? Like, we just went from 6 to midnight right now. It was pretty, that's another movie, but I think, wrapping up on BlacKkKlansman, you should see it, but we're still going to keep doing podcast stuff, but BlacKkKlansman, go see it. It's on Amazon Prime or something. You can go watch it. Ben, how did you watch it?
I just rented it on Vudu.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Because I didn't think it was available on any of the streaming platforms for free yet.
I'm not sure yet, but I just rented it on iTunes. That's what I did. And I just watched it on there. I did like the 3-day rental.
Yeah.
But I might actually go buy it now. It's one of those ones that I'm like, I might just go buy this. Because it's really good. And it's one that I kind of want to show people as well. Because that's a hard sell to like tell a friend like, yo, dude, you should go watch this. But if you have someone like hanging out with you or you hanging out with someone, you can kind of trap them and be like, we're watching this film.
Lock the door. And be like, oh, this is the only thing on. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, like duct tape them to the chair. Like, you're watching this and you'll feel better afterwards.
Clockwork Orange them. Get their eyelids forced open.
That's who I was thinking about for a director's episode. We should do a Stanley Kubrick episode.
Oh, good Lord. There's so much to dissect in all of his movies.
We should pick a Stanley Kubrick movie. And I don't want to do 2001: A Space Odyssey or Eyes Wide Shut because those two, no one understands. Especially 2001: A Space Odyssey. But I'd love to do an episode on a few Kubrick films. Have you seen
The Shining is definitely my favorite one of his.
Oh yeah, The Shining.
Just because I'm a big horror guy and Jack Nicholson in that movie is fucking nuts.
Oh yeah. Have you seen Eyes Wide Shut?
I have.
Yeah, that movie's weird.
It is very weird. It was very weird to my very too young self when I saw it.
Yeah, I saw that movie. That movie came out like what year? Like
2000, maybe 98 or 99 actually.
Okay, I saw that movie when I was like 7. So
yeah, way too young.
Yeah, way too young to see
for
that.
a CG orgy scene.
Yeah. When that happens, you're like, what the fuck is going on? But yeah, so, damn, I think for everyone listening, this might be the episode I've written the most notes on. I actually wrote real notes on this one, guys. It's impressive. Ben,
he's moving up in the world.
I know. Like I actually put work into this episode. I did research. I looked up names. I looked up things. It was a whole thing because I think we brought this up last episode where we're like, "Yo, we gotta do BlacKkKlansman." I think it would be like an injustice not to talk about this film because I think there's a few films every year that come along that you're like, "We gotta talk about this one." But going off on that. What do you, for like anticipated films of next year? I think the one that might be the one we talk about next year is the, is it Help Us? It's the next Jordan Peele one.
Oh, Just Us.
Just Us. Yeah, that might be one that you need to talk about afterwards. Where?
Yeah, I'm thinking so, and that's only a couple months away.
Yeah, that's like in March, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's premiering at South by Southwest. And then, it's out at like the end of March.
Ooh, I am so hype about that. Like, as soon as I saw the trailer, I'm like, this is going to be way scarier than Get Out.
Yeah, it looks like it's just going to be a straight up horror film.
Yeah.
Rather than the kind of the thriller, the very good thriller that Get Out was.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that Jordan Peele, the comedian, that's what everyone knows him as, comedian or voice actor, is doing these very powerful suspense thriller horror films.
Yeah, I'm super happy that he was given the chance to to do these. Because I want to say that from just the articles written about him, because it was so surprising that he would make something like Get Out after sketch comedy stuff like he's been doing with Key and Peele. I think through some of those interviews, he said like he's been a fan of horror films like his entire life, and it's been a dream for him to do this. And so now that he had, he took the path of comedy to get through or to get to where he wanted to be. Which I don't think he's probably not fully done with comedy. He'll probably do some stuff. I think he's doing some voice stuff. Both him and Keegan-Michael Key for Toy Story 4. I think they're both in that. But the more horror movies that are well made by people that love the genre and have something to say, something original to say, I'm all for that. Keep going.
See, I mean, I think just from my own personal experience making movies and stuff and being a fan of films, I'm not a gigantic horror person, as we've talked about, and that we'll probably talk about next week with the 2 series of movies that each of us watched. I'm a big thriller person. I love thriller and I love suspense. Horror, not so much. And I will talk about that next week with the movies and like what I did and didn't like about them. But that's why like a lot of the stuff I write is very thriller suspense, because that's something I really like. And like people who talk to me or know me personally wouldn't think that, like, of the things that I make. And I show them stuff, they're like, whoa, this is not what we expected from you. And I think it just goes off of like what you love to see is what you like to make.
I agree. Yeah, I think excuse me. I think a lot of people that I know personally and would talk to, I think they would have an idea, like if they know me well, that I am a fan of horror films, but I think they would be surprised because I've started a few like ideas, like writing down ideas for some horror stories that I want to eventually get put into a full script. But I think they would also be surprised with like how, I guess, I don't want to toot my own horn early and say like, oh yeah, my stuff is definitely scary, because maybe I think it's good, but I definitely have to have it, like looked over and have, people, get some second and third opinions on it. But yeah, I think people would be surprised with what kind of things I would put in there and think are horrifying. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a cool thing about horror. And I was talking about it yesterday with somebody, that I think horror as a genre, besides like drama, because all film is technically drama, and like comedy to some extent, I think the genre that's lasted the longest in the film industry without really seeing a gigantic change is horror. Yeah, it's a phenomenon like that affects our brains and bodies, like to be scared. Mm-hmm. And there's that adrenaline rush that you get when something scares you, not just from like a jump scare, like a lot of shitty horror films rely on, but the more like the building sense of dread and that release once something horrific does actually happen. Like there is an addictive side to that. Oh, most definitely. And I think my biggest thing is I like horror movies, but I don't like jump scares. I think that's the better way for me to put this. I think jump scares are just cheap. But I know sometimes they are like useful. But have you ever heard of the movie? And it's like a book and a play, The Woman in Black. Yeah, I never did see the movie with Radcliffe. Yeah, I actually went to go see the play of it in Chicago recently. Yo, it's pretty damn good, and especially in a play form. Because the whole film, they do it with 2 actors, and then there is the woman in black, who is a 3rd actor, but it's 2 actors, and they keep doing costume changes to play everybody. It is so good. And they do it with, like, no set. It's very stripped down. There's, like, only, like, 3 props, and they just do it with lighting and smoke and other things. It chilled the shit out of me. And now, do you have a compare? Like, have you seen the film? Like, can you compare the two? Yeah, I have seen the film. I actually watched the film afterwards. After I saw the play, I like literally went on iTunes and rented the movie. So the movie is really creepy. There's like stuff with like Victorian dolls and stuff. Dolls freak me out, but there's a lot of stuff with that. And the core story is the same. But the play did it better than the movie because the play has nothing except your imagination, and the movie does show a lot, and there are certain scenes, there's like jump scares in the movie, and here's how I'll describe it. The jump scares in the film there's like a few false ones where like something hits a window and you're like, oh shit, come on. Yeah. But there's like 3, I think, maybe more, where the thing that's the jump scare is in the room the whole time and you see it, but then the camera pans towards it and you're like, oh shit, it's been there the whole time. So if you rewind it, it's there. So it doesn't jump. It's just the camera tells you to look, and then you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, and then it happens. Mm-hmm. And like it's just like if you're watching the scene really closely or know that that's coming, you're like, oh, it won't scare you, but it's hiding in plain sight. Really well done. Yeah, I think the best use of horror is definitely that imagination part.
Yeah.
And I think some of the best, or some of the scariest things in film history have been the sort of like, okay, we're not going to show you the monster or all of the monster because you need to be able to freak yourself out. You need to let your own imagination run wild of what is hiding in the shadows.
Yeah.
With examples like Alien or Jaws, like they do eventually show you what is like killing people and what's lurking out there, but they keep it very conservative on what they do show you.
Yeah.
Because, and I think, it's happy accidents with, especially for Jaws, because the mechanical shark didn't work half the fucking time. And so they basically, Spielberg and his editor had to make it, or had to basically like, okay, we got to cut it down to show as little as possible, because, if we show you the whole thing, it's going to look stupid and it's going to take you out of the film. And with Alien, it was just a dude in a giant suit that probably would have looked as silly, just all the same.
Yeah.
And so they kept it, hidden for the most part.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, Alien 1 it's a masterclass in horror. But like Alien 2, I think is a fantastic movie, but it's not a horror film. It's an action film.
Exactly.
And people are like, Alien 2 is just like a better movie. I'm like, well, it's a different genre.
You cannot compare them on the same playing field because they're trying to accomplish different things.
Yeah. And like I love Alien 2 as well. But Alien 1, if you watch that, and I've never done it, but I need to. You have to show someone Alien for the first time. That
when my kids get old enough.
Yeah, that's like one of those things that like I just need to find people who haven't seen some of these movies, like Alien or like The Babadook or something, and just show it to them for the first time and just sit there and be like, I'm not watching the movie. I'm watching your reactions to this movie because I want to know what you think.
That's what I want to do with you for the movie Hereditary.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Oh my god, you say you don't like jump scares. There's very minimal in that, but this movie will just build and build and build and build, and then the third act is fucking bonkers.
I do want to see it because enough people have told me about Hereditary. Like, you told me about it first, and then one of my buddies at the gym was like, dude, have you seen Hereditary? I'm like, dude, that's so funny. Someone else just asked me that, and then someone else asked me, and then now you're bringing it up again, and I'm like, okay, I will wait to see it until, like, we can do... I have an idea for doing a live episode with you, like one because I have a camera set up that you can do the podcast with, and just watching that movie. I have a concept built for that, but
it is on Amazon Prime.
Oh shit! Okay, great. I'm so glad.
That.
Yeah, I'm like,
okay, it's gonna be a while before I can watch this for free. Nope, you're doing it.
God damn it! Oh fuck. Okay, I guess I have to watch that. But yeah, no, I really want to do that with people. Is just show them the horror movies or show them movies that have like some sort of twist or something for the first time, and them being like, whoa, and you're like, yeah. I think that I'm just trying to think of films that you can do that with. Like Alien is definitely one of them. Like The Babadook, maybe I guess Hereditary could be. What's another movie that you need to like show someone and watch them piece it together?
I guess maybe The Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense, maybe Memento.
That too, yeah. It's gonna be harder and harder for younger audiences as they grow into film watching to really get them to I think it's going to be harder to get them to appreciate older films. I
really do too. I always make fun of my dad watches a lot of Turner Classic movies, and I just make fun of him like, hey dad, this is a movie for the olds, and he's like, dude, shut up, you're a film person. And I'm like, I'm giving him a hard time for it, but I genuinely do think there are people who believe that.
It's going to get to the point where if the entire frame isn't, or if the entire shot isn't filled with shit exploding in CGI and 3 superheroes on the screen at once, it's going to be considered boring.
Yeah, and that's
to mainstream film viewers.
Yeah, and that's really scary for myself and you who also make movies. For us to be like, I don't want to make movies like that. Like, I have no desire. I mean, superhero movies have their special place, and that's important, and they're important to a lot of people. But that's just not the thing I want to make, and I don't want to be forced to make that.
Right.
Yeah.
I have zero confidence in my ability to make a good superhero movie.
Yeah,
like
same.
It takes a damn good writer and director, or the same person, to flesh out a story worth filming and worth producing into a movie.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think going on that, like, there's like the whole like joke where I'll say like so say you're watching a movie from the 1940s and there's an African American character and they call him boy. Yeah, that's not appropriate. Super wrong. Really offensive for a lot of reasons that we have talked about in this podcast. But I'll like make fun of my dad if he's just watching a movie from Turner Classic with him. Like, Dad, did the director get off of his shift at the racism factory before he like made this? And my dad's like, dude, stop. And I'm like, no, I'm making fun of you for it. But it's like, I think it is important to watch old films to understand them, to know where we are today.
Yes. And it's also important, and we touched on this in our Christmas episode, it's important to not view those films with through the critical lens of today.
Yeah.
Like, there's going to be shit that's going to be, like you said, inappropriate, but it was of its time.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, like, if there's a film you're watching and it happens to have blackface, yeah, you don't need to like that. If you do like it, I have some questions. But it's like, it's part of film history for better or worse, like Birth of a Nation.
Yeah.
It's part of film history for better or worse. Definitely for worse, but
it was definitely important in showing like a lot of modern filmmaking techniques.
Yes.
Came from Birth of a Nation, even if it is full of racist garbage.
Yeah, D.W. Griffith, who made Birth of a Nation, and I forget his cinematographer's name, were geniuses. They were racist, but they were geniuses. And it's like the first person to ever do like CGI kind of thing, where it's like, oh my god, you just invented a new thing in film. And I think we're getting closer and closer to that never being a thing again. Like, we're getting into, unless something crazy happens that we can't anticipate, but we're getting pretty close to the line where cinema is at its technological peak without just computers getting faster, better, and CGI getting better. But there's not a whole lot you can do that's new anymore. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Hopefully we are proven wrong.
Yes.
But yeah, it seems like there's only so much more you could possibly do to tell a story.
Yeah, and there are some good to that, some bad to that. But yeah, and it's interesting looking at it from a fan and a creative perspective. Just like looking at cinema and knowing a lot of people who went to film school and stuff with Ben and I, who just don't watch old movies for the sake of them being old. And I'm like, well, you have to learn why we got here. Like, this isn't accidental.
Right. It's not like someone only 2 years ago thought of the concept of like, intercutting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's important to see how it was done in the beginning in order to understand it and either perfect it or take it to the next evolutionary step in filmmaking.
Yeah, it really is. And I know the senior thesis film that I did at Purdue with another person who's still at Purdue, his name's Adam, who's been on the show, we only referenced films from the 1950s and earlier. Is what we did. We didn't use any new film techniques. I mean, of course, we have a new camera. We used my camera and a bunch of stuff, but we didn't use any new kinds of lighting. We didn't do any of that. And we said, what if you made a film that was this kind of style, but today? What would it look like? And we tried to be as true to it as possible. Just the way we filmed it, the way we lit it, the way we did the audio. And it turned out a very specific way where some people are like, technically speaking, it's good, like from a very technical aspect, but they're like, we don't get it. And I'm like, You don't exactly need to get it. As long as you remember it after it's done, I think we did our job.
Yeah, it's kind of like that movie that came out like 6 or 7 years ago, The Artist.
Yeah,
it was all black and white. It was a silent film basically, but shot in 2011 or whatever, using all the concepts of silent filmmaking to make a modern movie. That was an interesting way of doing things. I thought it was a good movie. But yeah, it was cool to see them make a contemporary Hollywood film in that old style.
Yeah, I think Alfonso Cuarón did it. The Artist. 2011. Good guess, damn. So it's black and white. Who's it written by? It won Academy Award. More about the film director. Oh, it's Michael
Hazanavicius.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that. But yeah, he's also famous for doing... Oh my god, he's in a lot. Jesus Christ. Good for him. But yeah, I did know he's a French director, not not Spanish director. But I did know he was an international director who won that award, which was really cool. And it was kind of like a love letter to cinema, which I think is always cool. But yeah, so Ben, do you have anything else to say before we're done?
Don't be racist.
Yeah, don't be racist. Don't be dumb. Watch the Academy Awards and write your congressman and stuff. I don't know. Like, do things. If you don't like something, do something to change it. That's our public service announcement. I'm going to sign off and then I'll let Ben finish the show. Hey guys, if you like the show, thank you for listening. Thank you for always supporting the show, sharing, doing all that fun stuff. We do have a website. It's always linked in the description. Anything that you want to know about the show is always linked in the description. Please reach out. I love hearing from you. Ben loves hearing from you. It's fun. And yeah, I'm Russell. Ben, close us off.
As always, thank you everybody for listening. Hope to catch you again next week for next week's episode. I am Ben. This has been See What Sticks, a podcast about everything and nothing. Thank you so much and have a great day.